Hey everyone, so today we're going to be going through the book of Judges. We're going to be going over the story of Gideon. And growing up, I always loved the book of Judges. It was my favorite growing up. Because I would read it and it would have battles, it would have heroes, villains, just good versus evil. And the fact that all these stories actually happened is just incredible. It's history. We're reading the story of Gideon, Deborah, Samson. We're just reading all these incredible stories of people that actually lived and God worked through them. So I'm excited to read through this and kind of give you some insights and just how I interpret it. And I'm just super excited to get into this with you. And just a little background for where we're going to be reading is this takes place approximately 200 years after Joshua died, after the book of Joshua. And at this time, the Israelites, they're going through a cycle. They'll go through a cycle of sin, turning away from God, worshiping idols. They suffer the consequences for that. So it goes sin, consequence, repentance, salvation. And that's what we're seeing here in the book of Judges. In our story today, in chapter 6 through 8, they're being tormented by the Midianites. The Midianites are just destroying their crops, they're killing their cattle, and the Israelites are living in fear. So the Israelites are calling out to God, just asking for help. So that's where we're going to pick up today. We're going to start in Judges 6. I'm going to read through and just give you some context and some insight onto what's going on. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them, or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. So what's happening right now is the Israelites are living in sin. They're worshiping idols, they're worshiping Baal, they're worshiping the gods of the Canaanites. So the Midianites, the Amalekites, and other tribes in that area are just tormenting them. They're destroying crops, they're killing all their livestock, and so the Israelites, they're hiding is what they're doing. They're hiding, they're in fear. They're constantly looking over their shoulders, which we'll see with Gideon here in a minute. So the Israelites right now, they're living in fear. For the last 7 years, the Midianites are just terrorizing them. They're killing their livestock, destroying their crops, so the Israelites really don't have anything. The Israelites, they're so scared, they're hiding. They're hiding in caves, they're building strongholds in the mountains, and they're constantly looking over their shoulders, which we'll see with Gideon in a second. So it's gotten to the point where the Israelites, they're crying out for God's help yet again, which they aren't learning from their past mistakes. This just keeps going on. They'll be going through all of this idolatry, just all these sins that they partake in, and they just turn away from God. And then when things start getting rough, when things start being awful living conditions for them, whether it's enslavement, whether it's terrorism, just being oppressed by other people, then they start turning their minds around and they start. So we pick back up in verse 6. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord. They're fed up. They want back what they had. They want freedom. They want the peace that God brings. And when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord, your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you live. But you have not listened to me. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. So we pick up with Gideon. He's threshing wheat in a winepress, which back in that day, it was a pit in the ground, right? So it was a dugout pit that people would use to stomp on grapes to make wine. So he's hiding from the Midianites, trying to keep what he's doing away from them so they don't come and take all of it or destroy it. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." And the Lord answered him, "I will be with you, and you will strike down the Midianites, leaving none alive." The angel of the Lord came down and told Gideon, who was the least in his tribe. He was the runt of the group, which sounds a lot like David, right? He was the youngest. He was the runt of the litter in his family. And I think that God does this a lot, showing us that you don't have to be a mighty person. You don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the smartest, the fastest. You don't have to be the most successful person for God to use you. And I think that's really encouraging, because it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're at in life. God can use you, and he uses Gideon to deliver the Israelites. In verse 17, Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." So Gideon he's doubtful. He's wanting a sign. He wants a confirmation that this is God talking to him, that it's him speaking to him and giving him these instructions. He's not having full faith in him. So what Gideon does is he goes inside and prepares a young goat, and from an ephah of flour he makes bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid, you are not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, "The Lord is Peace." To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. So you think that Gideon got the answer he was looking for. He got that confirmation that he wanted to verify in his mind, to give him that peace that he was hearing from the actual Lord. And you would think that would be good enough. The angel caused the sacrifice to burst into flames right in front of him. But we'll see here in a couple more verses that he needs a little extra proof to actually take him seriously. That same night, the Lord said to him, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, and one 7 years old. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night, rather than in the daytime. So at this time, this was a big deal, because they were worshiping Baal at this time, and the Asherah pole, it was usually a stylized tree or a pole that stood as a monument to the Canaanite goddess Asherah, and she was said to be the mother of many gods, and it was worshipped. They would worship this pole in order to worship the goddess Asherah. In verse 28 it goes on, "In the morning, when the people of the town got up, there was Baal's altar demolished, with the Asherah pole beside it cut down, and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They asked each other, 'Who did this?' When they carefully investigated, they were told, 'Gideon, son of Joash, did.' The people of the town demanded of Joash, 'Bring out your son, he must die, because he has broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it.' But Joash replied to the hostile crowd, 'Are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when somebody breaks down his altar.'" And I think that's a really good defense right there. You know, if Baal really is a god, if somebody destroyed something so sacred to him, don't you think that he'll have some wrath, some repercussions to that from the god himself? So Baal was the Canaanite god of fertility and nature. He was supposed to be in control of nature and all of the growth of trees, crops, plants, and it's a good defense from Joash. If Baal really is a god, then if somebody destroyed something so sacred as an altar to him, don't you think that Baal would be able to come and give repercussions for that if he is such a powerful god? So because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they gave him the name Jerub-Baal that day, saying, "Let Baal contend with him." Essentially saying, if Baal wants something done, he's going to have it done. But nothing ever happened to Gideon. So now all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples joined forces and crossed over the Jordan and camped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, calling them to arms, and also into Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. So they too went up to meet with them. Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand, as you had promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece, and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And that's what happened. Gideon rose early the next day, he squeezed the fleece, and wrung out the dew. So there goes Gideon, testing God again. He's just not fully satisfied with the sign of the burnt offering. He wanted another proof to put him at ease. He didn't have full faith that God was going to deliver the Israelites to him. And this is 3 tests that he's put God through so far. And that's not even the last time that he's going to question God. Into Judges 7 now. Early in the morning, Jerub-Baal, that is Gideon, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them, in the valley near the hill of Moreh. The Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say, 'This one shall go with you,' then he shall go. But if I say, 'This one shall not go with you,' then he shall not go." So Gideon had 32,000 men to fight the Midianites. And 32,000 men is not a small army. That's a pretty decent force right there. And God wasn't just going to use this as a way to deliver them. He was going to use it as a lesson. So God's going to take that 3,000 and he's going to thin it down to only 300 people. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, "Separate those who lap the water with their tongues, as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink." 300 of them drank from their cupped hands, lapping like dogs. All the rest got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. So God brought it from 32,000 men down to 300. And at this point, Gideon's probably wanting another test, right? He's probably thinking, how am I going to defeat the Midianites? How is God going to make this happen with 300 men? So imagine picturing this, just 135,000 men versus 300. The 300 men would just get swallowed up. That is not the best odds looking at it from Gideon's perspective. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and the trumpets of the others. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During that night the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down against the camp, because I'm going to give it into your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterward you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outposts of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Their camels could no more be counted than the sands of the seashore. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling his friend his dream. I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed down and worshipped. He returned to the camp of the Israelites and called out, get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into our hands. Now imagine that, going down to the enemy camp, where you can't even count how many camels they have. It said it's like counting the sands of the seashore. The Midianites, Amalekites, all the other tribes that they had gathered together. And then going down to that camp, overhearing somebody talking about you in particular, and how God is going to bring them into your hands. So we can see how that encouraged him, right? Going down there and hearing people talking about you and how you're just going to conquer them. So Gideon divided the 300 men into 3 companies. He placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them, with torches inside. Watch me, he told them. Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets, then from all around the camp blow yours and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon. Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets, broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying as they fled. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Bethsheba toward Zerara, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah, near Tabith. Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, come down against the Midianites, and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Bethbara. So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they seized the waters of the Jordan as far as Bethbara. They also captured 2 of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan. So God took the unlikeliest person, Gideon, to free Israel. He brought this massive army into his hands with only 300 men, some trumpets and torches. So some key points that I wanna get through in this video is that God can use our weakness to showcase his strength. God doesn't need us to be confident in order to be obedient. We don't need to be the best of the best. God can use us just as we are. We don't need to be perfect. Your past or your fear, it doesn't disqualify you from being used by God. God can use the lowest of lows. All right, He's done it time and time again. Right, we see it all throughout the Bible. God using the smallest, the weakest, the most sinful. He's used murderers. He's used adulterers. He's used just everybody that you can imagine, and He's done such great things with them. So what is God calling you to do? Is He calling you to do something and you feel scared? You feel Him pulling on you to do something, to go out and preach the gospel, to go out and make a new friend? Is He calling you to do anything that you're just too scared, you feel like you're inadequate to do it? Because that's not the case at all. God can use you with that fear. He doesn't need you to be bold as a lion, right? He will give you that strength. We need to trust Him, we need to obey Him, and we need to have faith. And that's a big takeaway that we can take from Gideon's story, is he had faith. It was shaky. He needed a couple signs from God, but at the end, God used him. So no matter what is going on in your life, we can trust that God will come through. We can trust that God will prevail. God always wants what's best for us, and He gets things done. We just have to open the door for Him. Hope you all have a great day. Go out and stay blessed.